how did you start working at IGN?
Right. Or
I want to do that.
And by extension, how do I get a job at IGN? So we figured we would talk about some specific areas that we want to encourage you guys to look at that you can do now without necessarily having to work at an IGN or another website.
And at the end of this hour, you will all have jobs at IGN.
That's not true.
You wrote the contracts, right?
That's right. But really, we want this to be a conversation. So we're going to talk about 3 or 4 key areas, and then we're just going to kind of open it up to you guys. And because I'm sure if you guys are interested in telling stories around video games and video game criticism, video game journalism, making videos, whatever it might be. I mean, there's so many different ways to communicate about video games these days. We imagine you guys have lots of questions about that stuff. So for me, I'm kind of the old guy on staff these days. When I started doing this, things were very different in the mid-90s. And sometimes people ask, and I was talking with Steve Lutz, our new editor-in-chief, about this as well, and like people would ask, like, hey, when you were young, did you know that you wanted to do this? And the answer is always like, no, because this really wasn't something that you would do when we were young. I mean, sure, there were magazines and whatnot, but for me, like, having a career as a video game journalist, I mean, I'm married, I've been married for 15 years, I have 3 kids, and being able to support a family and have a house and whatnot, writing about video games, like, I never thought that would be what I would do. So, but it's crazy that we live in a world where we actually can do these things. And but there's a lot of things that have to happen if this is a career that you want to pursue to get from, you know, hey, I like to play BioShock, to I want to make a living writing or talking about video games in some capacity. But the crazy thing is some of the things that you can actually do right now, they don't take a degree, although going to college is awesome. But yeah, let's talk about some of those things. So when it comes to actually writing about video games, Mitch Dyer here is a guy that I met when I was working at Official Xbox Magazine. This was in 2006 or 7? This was right around Mass Effect, right?
Yep.
And I wrote a column called The Scoreboard, and it was a dumb, stupid column. Basically, all I did was review games based on their achievements. So if the game had good achievements, then it got like
10 out of 10.
And if it had terrible achievements, then it got like a 1. It was so dumb. But we would do a community post. We did this online every week, and Mitch would always write in. And so Mitch was a really active member in our forums and in our boards.
Yep.
And he was just, how old were you then?
What year was this? 2006? I was 17. I just graduated in high school.
So, and what else were you doing at the time?
Wondering what to do with my life, not going to college, playing video games in my bedroom.
Woo!
Yeah, that guy knows what's up.
So, other than that, what Mitch actually did was he spammed us a lot and sent us emails saying that he wanted to be a part of this column. And I remember, I think it was either the BioShock or the Mass Effect one, and we had him write like part of the Scoreboard column. And then eventually, when I got a different job, I actually ended up, and this was a while later, I handed that column off to Mitch, and that was one of your, I think,
It was the first thing I was ever paid to do as a writer. If you go back, you read those, like, that column is still really funny, and I've never been as funny as I was in 2006. That's what I know. Mitch Dyer getting worse every year.
That's what IGN does.
Lesson 1, don't do that.
So what had to happen between that time, writing that column in 2007, and getting a job at IGN, and what can people here who are interested in pursuing that type of career maybe learn from that or do?
So I have an experiment. How many people in this room want my job? Want to be a video game writer, want to edit, want to write reviews, previews? Keep your hands up. All of the people who want to do this, hands up. How many of you, keep your hands up, if you write on a regular basis and maintain a blog?
Oh, you're fucking
Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up if you read on a regular basis.
You can't
You can't do
anything.
anything.
This is all we're slowly objecting.
I read.
So that's the trick. You have to read. You have to learn words. You have to know how to structure things. That's like step 1. Step 2 is putting that into action. You have to be able to put that into action. You have to just write. You have to write trash to identify what's bad about your writing, to have somebody read your writing, to be able to identify what's good about it, where you need to fix it. So it's a grueling process. Like, people always say that writing sucks, but it's always amazing to have written. That's mostly true for video game writing too. Like, that's true for all kinds of writing. So write your goddamn face off. Just write all the time. Write a blog, write on IGN blog, start a WordPress, do whatever you need to do to write whatever you want to. It doesn't have to be about video games. Write about other stuff, and then you can have a wider profile of things to show people. Like, oh, I know how to write about video game criticism, and I also write about books. Like, I wrote a book review. I was able to analyze books. Or you can write features. You don't have to be paid for it. You can just do it and post a feature that's cool. And when you send it to someone like Casey, who will see that and be like, fuck, this is awesome. I should hire this guy. You have all of this stuff to show an editor that is demonstrative of lessons learned, of time dedicated to writing. Like, being able to show that you are really into it is extremely important.
Now, one of the things that you did when you were kind of coming up was you took all that writing and what you were working on, and you actually sort of did your best to get it in front of people outside of just writing on a blog. Because anybody can write like on a Tumblr account.
Sure.
Or a WordPress account.
But that was part of my portfolio, right? Like, I had done this column, and I was like, all right, now I am a paid professional. Now I have something in addition to all of this stuff I had on my blog. So you can send emails to people and say, like, hey, I'm a writer. I'm wondering if you need freelance work. Here's a bunch of links to stuff I've written. Here's my personal blog. Thanks for your time. And sometimes people get back to you and give you money to write stuff for them, and that's fucking awesome.
Now, that's fucking awesome.
It's true.
Greg Miller, you know a little bit about emailing people once you've started working on stuff,
right.
Talking to them about your dreams. Talk a little bit about like the process of you going from this kid at Missouri.
You remember Missouri? They lost already.
Yeah.
Yeah, my story is well told. I'm sorry to bore you if you've heard it before, but yeah, I applied at IGN 12 times on my Gmail account. I established a Gmail account right before I graduated college. 12 times and got rejected every single time.
What was your Gmail? Was it something embarrassing?
It's the same Gmail I have right now.
Okay, so it's like,
I'm not going to be like, hey, everybody!
No, I mean, was it like your high school? Because everyone in high school has like their shitty names for Gmail.
No, it was my
okay.
It was my real
Okay.
name. It was my real name.
What do you mean were you really rejected, or were you just?
Well, no, they didn't say anything back.
You got a rejection letter?
No, that's one of the things.
Dear Mr. Miller,
I tell this.
thank you for your interest.
They probably should. One Up was nice enough to send me personalized rejections. And that's honestly where it started for me, where I was like, fuck IGN, I'm never going to work for IGN. They can't even send me a rejection. But on the 13th time, I got contacted by Dunham, interviewed by him and Roper, and hired within 24 hours. So I was like, when I finally moved out here and I had signed everything and I was locked in, I was like, so what the hell was with the other 12 times? And they told me it was that you hadn't proved you could do it. What had changed for me is that I went from being this University of Missouri student graduate who had a random clip about video games here or there, every 6 months maybe I got something in the magazine about video games, to being this guy who had convinced my daily newspaper I was working for to give me a weekly column and a daily blog. So I could just write nonstop. So I had this giant volume of work to show them this is who I am and this is what I want to do. And I knew things were going well during the interview when I mentioned the blog and I heard them shuffle papers and Dunham goes, yeah, and about that, are you a character on the blog or is that really you? And I was like, I'm going to fit in just fine here.
So when you're sending out 13 emails, Greg, how important is it after you've done that hard work to say, like, use correct grammar and spell correctly?
That's the most important thing. I mean, how many emails do we get that we just, I want to write for IGN, and it's nothing's uppercase and there's no periods.
How to get you our job?
Yeah.
I'm very often disappointed in people reach out to me through email or on Facebook or on Twitter asking me how can they get a job similar to ours. I'm very disappointed at how often it's not constructed in a readable way. There's spelling errors, grammatical errors. That's the very basis. You need to be able to write a complete sentence.
So,
I wish I didn't have to say that. I shouldn't have to say that.
Right, so tip number one, if you want our jobs and you think you could do this, make sure when you reach out to us that you just take the time to write in complete sentences, spell correctly. Use spell check, it's your friend. It's great. So once you actually look at somebody's either their resume or their stuff, like Damon, what would you say stands out to you? There's something that you would look for in somebody that might be good at this.
So I actually didn't. When I was hired at IGN, I was really lucky. I didn't have previous experience writing about games, but I've always been a strong writer. It kind of runs in my family, and I was able to write a cover letter that got the attention of the guys that were hiring at IGN. It was, I thought it was pretty clever. They apparently did too, and it got their attention. And even though I didn't have, professional experience writing about games, I was hired as a news editor for IGN, and I think that's really important. There's an anecdote that there are more people making a living as rock stars than there are doing what we do, and just goes to show you, like, there's a lot of people out there that think our jobs sound like fun, that would like to do this, but there aren't that many jobs available. So you really need to make yourself stand out. Figure out some sort of shtick, something that makes you unique. What's your unique point of view on the video game industry? You know, either figure out some clever way to get our attention. The people that are most visible to us are the super fans, probably. And we totally notice you. We get to know you, we get to know your names, we get to know your personalities and what you guys are like. Those guys definitely have a leg up when it comes time to, you know, if we have a position open, when we start thinking about, you know, who would be right for this role. Figure out something that's really unique that makes you stand out.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you think about it, you can, like, if you like reading about video games online or in magazines, you probably have places you go to, right? A bunch of different websites, you subscribe to different magazines, whatever it might be, or just IGN, whatever the case is. But sometimes you can see the same preview, say, in 4 different outlets, or 20. You know, oh, this, you know, everybody looks like they all played BioShock, or everybody looks like they all played whatever it is, and you sort of see what everybody's saying. I think it's in stuff like that it's super important to make yourself memorable, to stand out in some capacity. And that doesn't mean that, you know, like you're trying out for American Idol and you come in a chicken suit or something like that, although we probably would pay attention to that.
Maybe.
I don't know. But the point is there's got to be something about your observations and about who you are and what you bring sort of to the conversation that makes you stand out. Because anybody can say, I played this game, and you jump and you go right and you shoot. Now, Damon, when did you start at IGN?
2006.
Okay,
Yeah, almost
so
7 years now. I think it's sometime April 14th will be my 7th anniversary.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's coming up. We need to do something.
Yes.
All of us. All of us right here. But now, so 7 years ago, the world was actually pretty different. Nowadays, it's this thing called YouTube.
Yeah.
And, you know, how has YouTube sort of changed the way that people are talking about games, and how can some people in here who might have sort of an affinity for YouTube use that?
Yeah, so video games are a visual medium, you know. So I come from a theater background, and we have a saying in theater, show, don't tell. You know, like, it's more powerful for an actress, in order to walk on stage and say, I am pregnant, it would be more powerful for her to actually show the physicality of what it's like for a woman to be pregnant. So, like, video games, why would we talk about something, write about something when we can show you? And that's what, you know, one of the biggest changes that's happened in our industry over the past generation, and the rise of YouTube and the prevalence of video on the internet, is that now, instead of like sitting down, like we go to a game demo, we play the game, and then we come back, and now I have to write and describe to you what the game is like. And now we can just show it to you. Let's take video of it, and, like, you know, whatever, picture's worth 1,000 words. It's a lot more powerful just to be able to show you what the game looks like. Then that sort of frees us up, actually, to be even more creative with our jobs, because now we don't have to describe what the games are like. Now we can deliver our opinions and our criticisms, and, you know, sort of inject more of our personalities. And instead of, this is what the game is, we can tell you, this is what we think about what the game is. And that, you know, that's better for us, it's better for you.
And people like it, obviously, when you look at some of these people on YouTube who, you know, whether it's like PewDiePie or Captain Sparkles or